about much about project management, but we're going to talk about happiness. We're going to talk about how happiness helps you to manage your projects well, how you can be more productive if you are happy. So the main presentation is going to be revolve around uh, making you more successful, more resilient project manager. So we're not going to talk about much, about actual project management core stuff, the knowledge areas and stuff. Uh, as Saina has already introduced me, but I've experienced around 22 years in project and program management. I'm a trainer. I've been speaking in international conferences. I'm an agile enthusiast. I'm a happiness coach too. Very few people they understand or they like the idea that how happiness can be taught to other people. But I truly believe that you can help people, you can enable people to grow, you can enable people to be happy in life and to lead a wonderful life by very simple tips and tricks. Not much about you know the theorems or the methods and stuff, but very smaller things that can help you to lead a good life. I'm also a true believer of giving back to society. And last but not the least, I'm a good storyteller. So I'm going to tell you a couple of stories also in this presentation. So let's move forward. Uh, Having this pandemic situation all over the world, let me start with saying you stay home, stay healthy, stay safe. Safety of the human being is the most important thing ever, and especially nowadays when the whole world is in the lockdown and we are closed. And in this situation, let me start with saying that we should, all of us, should uh, sort of protect ourselves and protect the society. So, washing your hands for 20 seconds, washing hands, more frequently, cover your mouth and nose with a mask or something, eat a balanced diet, and do social distancing. What the government is saying is, I believe that this is the need of the day. The number of patients, the number of beds. So, so just moving forward, let me tell you a story about how stressful a life of a project manager or program manager can be. You can see a part of a tweet on the screen. Uh, there are people who are saying that they cannot listen me. Uh, can somebody confirm that, or can you listen me? Yes. Okay. So wonderful. So whatever is on your screen is a tweet from one of the ministers from the Pakistani government in this corona situation and this pandemic. Government announced uh, to pay 12,000 rupees to 12 million families. So it's like something like 144 billion Pakistani rupees. And I'm the program manager for this program. And for the last 12 days, 12 hours a day, no Saturday, no Sunday. And my technology teams are working probably 24 hours a day for the last 3, 4 days. And we managed to pull off this program in a very, very short time. Where one of the part there that is uh, you can see here in the screen is that people send a message on a short code and they get their eligibility, and then there's a lot of other components of the program. What I'm trying to tell you is that the life of the project manager is not that easy life. Even when this in this corona pandemic, when the half of the world is locked down, major part of the Pakistan are locked down, there are people who are working 24/7 just to make a project and program successful. So why I'm here telling you this? just to set a stage that life of a project manager or program manager is not an easy life. You need to be very tough. You need to be very strong to pull off these sort of projects where the timelines are very stringent and the environment is not good, and you have no help available, and you still have to do it. So how can we do this? From now onwards, we are going to talk about how this can be done. So starting from, let me tell you one more thing, that as per WHO, by 2030, depression will be the single leading cause of disability globally. So with the use of technology, with this situations, with this high-paced work, depression is the thing that is growing day by day, and people are getting depressed. As Daniel Goleman says in his book Focus, that the amount of information we process in our mind every day is overwhelming. It actually takes a lot of time to process the information and then just choose the one that you need, and just putting away the other one that is not relevant to you. So again, in this information age, uh, in this technological age, people are getting more depressed day by day. So again, it means that the importance of happiness is getting more and more every single day. So let's move forward and talk about that. Are we, all of us, like like 51 attendees, myself and the host, are we all ready for this, to embark on a flight where there's more depression, more stress, more work, more agility, and can we be more productive? Can we be more resilient? Can we be more happy in our life, in our professional life, and in our personal lives? So every one of us need to check the readiness state of ourselves. There may be people among us today who are listening this, they will be very much ready for this flight. They know what to do, but there might be people among us, they're not ready to move forward. They're not ready to take the stress. The stress kills you. There are people who are getting sick just due to the stress. And depending on what type of projects you work on, if you're working on mega projects, if you are dealing with the cross-cultural teams, if you're dealing with the projects related to the emergency, related to the projects of security, there are so much stress in the projects that it degrades your health. At the end of the day, for me, it is very important to know that whether I am ready for the flight or not. And I believe that all of you who are listening to this conversation, you need to be, you are the best judge for yourself. You need to gauge yourself that whether you are ready or not. But moving on from here, I can, in the rest of the conversation, I can give you certain tips and tricks that how you can be ready for this, how you can do this, and how you can be more happy in your personal life and in your professional life, and how it's going to help the project managers and the project success. Let's move forward. There is a book by Simon Sinek uh, talking about to find your why. And here on the screen, you can see know your why. It means knowing your purpose, knowing what exactly is your objective, what exactly is that your forte. That is I mean by knowing your why. There are certain questions that you need to ask yourself actually to understand what is your why. To find out your why, let me talk about a certain questions. For example, you need to ask yourself, what are the things you can do that make others' life better? what you liked when you were a kid. There are always sweet memories from our childhood. We used to like when we were a kid, we used to like certain stuff, and then we remember that when I was a kid, I used to play football. I used to help people. I used to play tennis. Whatever it is, you need to know. You need to ask a question yourself that what you liked when you were a kid. Observe what people ask you when they approach you for the help. It might tell you your forte. It might tell you what you are best in, what people comes to you for help, what type of help people want from you. You should also ask from yourself the things for which you are willing to go an extra mile. There might be certain things uh, close to your heart, and you are willing to go an extra mile for those things. Maybe to helping someone, maybe to get something, maybe to do something. But you need to exactly know that what are the things, what are those 1, 2, 3, 4 points that you are willing to go for an extra mile. There's another question you need to ask from yourself actually, that you have a chance to teach. What would you teach others? That will also tell you that what is very close to your heart. What is something that you value most? It's about, again, finding your own values. You can also ask yourself that why people thank you, on what thing people thank you, what exactly you do that, when you get thank you from the people, the gratitude from the people. You should also ask yourself that what are the happiest moments, the happiest memories of your childhood. So this is what I'm talking about, is not an exhaustive list, but this is a list of questions that you may ask yourself to know the purpose of your life, to know the why in your life. Let's talk about for a while that why you need it. What are the benefits of knowing the why in your life? You get more clarity in the life. You get more focused in your life when you know that you know what exactly you should be doing, so you are much focused in your life. And you, when you are focused, you have clarity. It is very interesting. I'm going to say it really helps you in live a longer and a healthier life. Why? Because you know what exactly your purpose, what exactly are your value. It keeps you alive, it keeps you healthy, and also since you are more focused, it makes you more resilient in life. And I believe myself that being resilient is a trait that is something should have in your personal life and in your professional life, especially when you're a project manager. You're running from pillar to post to meet your deadlines, to negotiate with the stakeholders, to get things done. You need to be resilient. If you're not resilient, we're going to talk about resilience more in some of the other slides. But again, you need to be very much resilient, and if you want to uh, uh, sort of have a good life. Next one, next slide we're talking about here is that, the whole life.
Select one, yes.
So in the whole life, you are actually a work in progress. From your birth till your death, you are learning every single day. You are making yourself improvised, you are improving yourself, you are learning, you are listening every single day, every single moment of your life. So one cannot say at any point of time that he or she has achieved everything. It is actually a continuous effort in your life. So I used to say that, I'm a work in progress. You cannot achieve everything. It is, ever growing thing that we were talking about. So let's talk about a bit on what exactly happiness is. There's no single definition of happiness. And if you go through the literature, go to the YouTube, Google, or any other medium, you will not find one agreed upon a single definition of what happiness is. There are certain pointers, there are certain things that are more uh, agreed upon, and one of them is that happiness is a state. In other words, happiness cannot be normally, it cannot be the long term thing, it is a short term. So maybe you are in a state of happiness. It's a mental state we say. So it is not possible for someone to be happy for all the time. There are situations in life, there are scenarios in life where you have different moods. Happiness is also equated with feeling pleasure and contentment. So this is another way to talk about. And then happiness can either be feeling or showing. In other words, it can be internal or it can be external. But in very simpler terms, since it's a mental state, and your happiness is a mental state, it means you're feeling fulfilled. You are feeling pleasure in your life. So that is something we say that you are happy in the moment. And on your screen, you can see a black and white picture, and there are certain kids, and kids are smiling. Smile is something that actually helps you to be happy. There's a lot of discussion on this. There are a lot of research papers written, a lot of psychology stuff on smile, but there's a lot of literature showing that smile is helpful, or smiling is helpful in relaxation or making you happy. There's an interesting factor. Uh, when you smile, it can trick your brain that you're happy. So, so there are articles, there are things people say, I'm sure you have already heard it, that fake it till you make it. So there's some of the psychologists, they say that, your brain cannot differentiate between a true smile or a fake smile. So when you smile, your brain think that you are happy, and it makes you more relaxed. And this is something that a lot of experiments have done by the psychologists, by the professors of different universities all over the world. And there's a lot of literature on it that smile helps in not only making you relax, it helps you in being more healthy, it helps you in being more happy. And end of the day, if you're more healthy and more happy, you will live a longer life. There's another way of saying it. When you smile at people, let's say you entered in our meeting room, it's a project progress discussion, and it's a very tense environment. You enter in the room as a project manager, and a lot of stakeholders are waiting for you. You smile all of them and say, "Good morning, fellows. Hope you're doing good today. It's a very sunny morning. Let's talk about what's going on in the project." So while sitting on your chair, you actually set a light tone for the meeting. I've been practicing this. It is very much helpful for me, and I've talked to a lot of people around the globe. They are doing the same, and they agree with the idea that even in the professional environments, a smile helps you in getting things done. Let's move uh, forward. I'm sure you can see a lot of things, a lot of faces on your screen. And some of you might be wondering why there are a lot of faces on the screen. But if you have a look again, uh, there are people from different genders, different races, different ethnicity backgrounds. So they are diverse group of people. uh, I think the people who have worked in the cross-cultural teams, they will understand the idea better that once you are working with a team, having different genders and people from different countries, it gives you a lot of exposure actually. Diversity is by some of the psychologists and researchers, diversity is linked with the happiness. Why? Let's talk about why diversity is linked with the happiness. If you see in the next slide, there's a term called diversity intelligence. When you're working with people from different color, different race, different genders, you create acceptability in yourself. You accept different cultures, you accept different religions, you accept different norms, you accept different traditions. That makes you more flexible. So you're actually not only accepting uh, the differences, you're actually respecting them also. So there are people from different part of the world. Even the meaning of one single word can be very different for different people. Let me tell you a small story. I was doing my MBA from European University, Cyprus, and one of my classmate was a guy from Georgia. And since in Pakistan, whenever we met our friends, we used to shake hands. So I remember I was in Cyprus, and in the very early days, I met the guy. I had a chat before meeting him. Then I met the guy in the class. We became friends, and one day said, "Hey, Naeem, why are you shaking hand every time?" We had a little chat, and I found out that in Georgia, or at least in his perspective, shaking hand 3, 4, 5 times a day is not advisable. But for us in Pakistan, we meet 20 times a day, we shake hand. That's okay for us. So so accepting the differences and respecting the differences, that makes you, actually makes you happy. It makes you flexible. And then you understand different people, different cultures, different races, different colors, genders. You welcome those people and you embrace the change actually. So all these things, when it comes to your life, it make you more flexible. When you're more flexible, you become a good team. When we're talking about one project team, having people from different genders, races, colors, and ethnicity. So if you're working in such cross-cultural team, you'll become more, you'll have more flexibility in your personality. You'll respect the difference of opinions. Even you'll respect, different type of opinions, and that will really help you to be more resilient end of the day, and eventually that will help you uh, to be more happy. Okay, let's move forward and talk about mindfulness. Okay, so mindfulness. What is mindfulness, and why mindfulness is important for a project manager? How it really helps in the communication. I think in the all these 70 people, the majority of us are the project managers, and you understand the importance of communication in the project, in project. So probably more than 90% of the time, project manager is communicating to the team members, to the project team, project management team, stakeholders, sponsors, vendors, partners. So there are different hats a project manager will be wearing. So mindfulness is actually communicating with grace, diplomacy, and tact. So at times you see a very nasty email from one of your stakeholders, and you don't want to reply harsh on that email. So that is where mindfulness comes in. Why it is again important? Because most of the time in projects, again, depending on what type of projects all of you are doing, they are ad hoc communications, they are reactive communications, and they are very high stake communications. So when all these communications, type of communications are there in the project, if the project manager loses the control, I think all of you know what happens then. It is something that a disaster we are talking about. It means that project manager has to resist all the mental distractions. Project manager also need to understand what are the cues you are getting from the stakeholders. We always say that, read between the lines. There are certain things that you are getting in the emails, and then you need to understand why those stakeholders are communicating that way, why they are sending those nasty emails. In all this, attention is very important, very important. You need to have attention on everything. If you do not have an attention, if you're not listening, you cannot be a good or a happy project manager. Mindfulness actually helps you to think about your own thinking. That is what we sometimes we call it as the metacognition. This metacognition or thinking about your thinking is that before responding to any type of communication, whether it's an email, a phone call, or something, you're the one who need to be cool and calm, to listen to pay attention to the details, uh, get the mental cues from the stakeholders, and put off all your distractions or mental distraction, resist to that, and then respond to those communications in, in a way that is most appropriate for you and for your project. End of the day, this is your project. You cannot be a slave of somebody else. There should not be a sponsor or any of the stakeholders or even your team member who can make you angry, or he can make you fearful or something. Or you need to see what is happening. You need to grasp the situation, think about the consequences, and then reply back to the queries, to the questions, or to the communications. So mindfulness is one of the core trait a project manager should have. The project managers who are not practicing mindfulness, they are struggling to achieve their project objectives and project goals. They are struggling to achieve their deadlines. They are struggling to get final sign off of their requirements or the final scope. Why? Because they're not practicing mindfulness. They're not communicating tactfully with the diplomacy. So this is one very important trait that helps you to be a more successful, a more star performer, and a more happy project manager. Let's move forward. And there's another trait that is resilience. In the project, especially if you're working on mega projects, the projects that involves different nations, different cultures. The project who are agile projects or very high speed, high stake projects. Uh, you you might face a lot of setbacks, a lot of problems, a lot of challenges within your project. But how you respond is in your control. This may not be in your control that what the situation comes to you, but how you respond back to the situation, that is definitely in your control. You can always uh, think that you can bounce back from the blows of the life. There are always uh, situations where you feel like maybe sometimes you feel like quitting. Maybe you feel like being fired from the role or from the organization. But resilience is again a key trait of a project manager, because situations and projects are changed uh, every time, every day, uh, and you need to be more resilient to be, to be a good project manager, to be a happy project manager. You also need to put disappointment in a perspective. Maybe you're disappointed from a situation, but you need to analyze the situation first, and then you need to respond. The project managers, especially the successful project managers or the happy project managers, those are the people who are not the one who respond spontaneously and and make create troubles for themselves and for their projects. Again, let me repeat it. End of the day, it's your project. You are the one who's responsible to meet the project objectives. So you need to put things in perspective. So but by saying this, if we talk about the core elements of resilience, that you have a positive attitude, you have an ability to differentiate between the right and wrong, you have a strength to do different difficult things. It means that you're more strong. You have a strength to do what is difficult, what other people believe that it cannot be achieved. Uh, you are the one who say, let me work on it. I can do this. And then, end of the day, if you don't believe in yourself, you cannot do anything at all. So, having a firm belief in yourself that, yes, I have the capabilities, I have the skill set, I have the domain knowledge, I'm the one who can do it, and I'm definitely going to do it. This one belief actually lifts you up. So, whatever the situation is in your project, you need to believe in yourself that, yes, you can do it. Believe you me, this just one thing, that is called the belief in yourself that, yes, I can do it. This has done miracles in projects and miracles and the lives of the people. The people who are, uh, you know, they were even ending their lives, and something happened, and they got a belief that, yes, we can change it. They really changed uh, the situation. They changed everything actually. So, so what you should do, if we talk about the tips and tricks to do this, how to be resilient, what should you do? So there are certain things that you need to strengthen your beliefs. Number one, that you need to strengthen your belief. Then try to connect with the resilient people. You always used to say that the man is known by the company he keeps. So if you try to connect with the people who are more resilient people, you'll become like those, because when you talk to them, you meet with them, you have a conversation with them, they'll be talking about how they become star performers, how they become more resilient. You're going to learn from those people. So connecting to the right type of people, connecting to the resilient people is something very important stuff to do. And then do something meaningful, something that actually shows your core value, that has a meaning to do, maybe helping the community, helping your fellow project managers. There can be a lot of things that we talk about, uh, you know uh, doing the meaningful work. That's uh, what we say. And then the other uh, tip is that, pay attention to yourself. You are the one who need to take care of yourself. You need to pay attention, very close attention to yourself, and see that, what makes you more knowledgeable, what makes you more healthy, what makes you more happy, what makes you more productive. That is when you pay attention to yourself, when you see yourself in the mirror, and then you think about yourself, what you think that you should be and how you look like, what are the traits you think you should have and you should build in you. That is what I mean, that pay attention to yourself. One of the participants is saying, and she's very right, that you know, a 4 to 5 minutes mindfulness session at the start of the day or midday, or I would say at the end of the day, that really helps you to stay focused, to stay cool, to stay calm. So that is, very simple tips and tricks. I normally do meditation uh, in the morning, but when I have a stressful day uh, and my life and my projects day, so I do like 15 minutes meditation in the evening also. That really helps me to be more cool and calm and see that that actually helps you to be more focused, to more relaxed, and plan your next day if you do it in the evening also. We can have a couple of questions if you have any questions before uh, moving forward. If I can see in the chat window, uh, I can't see stuff in the chat window.
We don't have questions right now. I think we have comments from people, participants, but as of now, I don't see the questions in the chat window.
Oh,
So
okay,
I think
okay,
we
no,
can then continue and we can have the questions at the end. If till then we're going to have the questions.
yeah, sure, we can do that. No problem in that. Okay, let's move forward. And the next thing we have in the presentation is emotional agility. Susan David, one of the Harvard Medical School professors, she wrote a book on emotional agility. Also, she did a good research on this. Emotional agility uh, is something that is a bit different than emotional intelligence. Interestingly. Uh, It's the ability to manage one's thoughts and feelings. And if you lack emotional agility and your personality, it 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 affects your decision making actually. It seriously affects your decision making. And sometimes what happens if you are not emotionally agile, you tend to avoid certain situations. And in the life of the leaders, in the life of the project managers, this is something uh, something not desirable to avoid the situation, especially if you're a project manager and you're working on a project. You cannot avoid such certain situations. You need to respond to situations. You need to respond to scenarios. So there are things we're going to talk about, that how one can be, whether it is a personal life or it is a professional life. There are ways where you need emotional agility, because you have to make decisions every single day. It's not about project management, it's not about your professional life, it's also your personal life. Even in your personal life, you make decision every single day, I believe. And if you start suppressing your emotions, it started leaking out. Whether it's a family function, it's a fight with your brother, it's a situation in your school, it's a situation with the stakeholders in a multi-billion-dollar project. Whenever you tend to suppress emotions, it bursts somewhere else. So what one should do to be emotionally agile, or how to achieve emotional agility? Let's talk about that. There are four things that I'm going to talk about, that how you can achieve emotional agility. And the first one is that you name it. You name your emotion. There are people I've seen in my own life, and some years back, I felt it the same way that there are people who cannot even recognize their true emotions. Just, just, just imagine that you are angry and you cannot recognize yourself as an angry. Any emotion you talk about. So the very first thing is that you recognize it, you name it, you identify it, that yes, I am in this emotional state. The first thing is that you name it. And then the second part is accept it. You need to accept that in which emotional state you are. Nothing bad in it. It doesn't matter whichever emotional state you are. When you have identified the state, you need to accept it. That yes, I accept it, that I am in this emotional state. Okay. So the second part is done, that you have accepted that you are in this emotional state. You are in this emotion at this point of time. And then there's an interesting part comes in. You step out of it. It's like you see your soul is coming out of your body, and from outer side or external view, you are having a look at your body. Or you think of, we also call it detaching yourself from the emotion. So there are a lot of tips and tricks of doing this. That how you need to detach yourself from the emotion. You are feeling anxious in a gathering. You started scrolling something on your mobile for a minute. You felt better, and then you initiate a discussion with somebody who was standing near you. So so you detach yourself for a while from that emotion. The benefit of detaching yourself from the emotion is then you have an external view of what should be done. When you are unable to detach yourself or you step out of it, from that emotion, you cannot actually decide what to do in this situation. But once you have an external view, you are detached from that scenario, that emotion. As I told you, example that you think like your soul is out of your body, and now your soul is having a look at your body. Or in other ways, when you are detached, then just think of a chessboard that you are making to make a move, and uh, from an external view, you are calculating, that if I do this, this will be done. You are actually calculating a lot of moves of yourself and the opponent. And then if once you have done this, then the last part or the fourth part is that act according to your values. The best part of these four is that once you know your emotion, you accept internally that yes, I am in that emotion. Then you stepped out of the emotion, you calculated the moves, you calculate scenarios, and then you can exactly act whatever your value says, whatever your internal value says, your value system says, you can act accordingly. So just imagine if you don't do this. I'm sure all of the people who are listening this, uh, I'm sure all of your experienced people here, in your project lives, there'll be a lot of scenarios where you got a nasty email from the client of any of the stakeholders, and something tipped your mind. You just opened your desktop or laptop, and you right away sent uh, a very harsh email, responding back to that, and then a couple of hours later or a couple of days later, both of you are regretting those emails. I'm sure this would happen to many of us here in this forum. So just to avoid those sort of situation, just to avoid the situation that can negatively impact your project, negatively impact your uh, your relationship with the stakeholders or with the sponsor or with the clients, you need to be emotionally agile. This is something, again, very important for a project manager to have. Okay, let's move forward on what is next in our agenda about today's discussion, and that is stamina. So again, stamina can be of two types, can be described in two different dimensions. One is your physical stamina, and the one is your psychological stamina. In all of the previous slides we have been talking about, we were mostly talking about your psychological stamina. Again, I start the discussion with that projects are not easy. The life of the project managers are not easy, especially you're working on mega projects, complex projects, projects involving different nations, different countries, different cross-cultural teams. Uh, the projects are very difficult. You need to be resilient. You need to be, a strong one. You need to have a psychological stamina. You need to have stamina to face the situations, face the criticism. You need to have stamina to face every type of people. And to do all this, we talked a lot about uh, uh, we talked a lot about psychological stamina. Let's talk about your physical stamina. You know, the one typical day of a project manager is very different than the day of a functional manager or somebody who has a desk job. You have to run a lot, you have to chase people, you have to go to the meeting. I mean, you need to be healthy. You need to have a very healthy food. You need to have physical stamina. You need to be, to be healthy. You need to work out, maybe, exercises, gyms. Again, the research studies show that gym exercises that makes you happy. So there is a direct relationship of happiness with your physical stamina, with your exercises, with your workouts, with your gyms. You need it. As a project manager, believe you me, you need it. Why? Because if you're not physically healthy, how can you be psychologically healthy? There are tense situations, tense scenarios, tense negotiations, conflict situations in the projects, especially if you're working on infrastructure projects or technology projects that involve infrastructures. Uh, um, Life becomes even more difficult. So, as a project manager, you need to have the ability to handle stress in your life. And I'm sure all of you would agree that the life of a project manager is a stressful life. So how you deal with that stress, that is something very important. If you have stamina, physical stamina and psychological stamina, it is more likely that you will be able to handle the stress quite easily. And if you're also doing meditation, yoga, mindfulness exercises, you are resilient, then you'll definitely have more stamina. You'll be definitely having more powers to cope up with the stress. Let's uh, move forward and talk about uh, the habits of happy project managers. The people who are project managers, the people who are happy, what do they do all the time? What are their habits? What they believe in? Let's talk about those habits. I was talking to a minute ago that they eat healthy. So this is one first habit of the project managers who are happy, that they eat healthy. Why? Because they know that they need energy to cope up with the stress. They need energy to run around, to negotiate with people, to have a lot of meetings. to have stressful meetings, to negotiate, to resolve conflicts, to build your team. They need all this energy, and how this energy will come when you eat healthy food. Again, it is up to you. It's the same like the people who are into sports. They eat very specific food. They don't eat everything. They eat very specific food. So it's the same like the project managers. Project managers, the one who are happy, they take care of their health. They have fruits, nuts, juices, have a good breakfast, things that give them energy, that makes them, more live, more healthier. And then if you're more live and healthier, you are more happier. This is something very interesting. This habit of the happy project managers. This is they know slow is fast. This is really interesting for me. Slow is fast. What it means when I say slow is fast. It means they are very good in planning. They don't act in haste. They don't act very quickly. They give it a clear, focused thinking. They plan it well, and then they execute. What is the benefit of planning well and then executing? Uh, and that is that they have very minimum redos, or have to do from the scratch. When you act in haste, when you act like fast, try to act in fast, uh, that creates problems, and probably you have to do it again and again and again. That wastes more of your time. So this is again a habit of happy project managers, that they know that slow is fast. They plan very well, and then they execute it, whatever it is in the project. We are having two questions. Can I have those questions, please?
Yeah. So the first question you have received is how can mindfulness be helpful in the meetings, especially when you are going into a nasty one?
Very interesting question. Wonderful one. I would say mindful would be the best applicable or useful in especially those meetings who are the nasty ones. You know why? Because what we talked about when we were talking about the mindfulness, we talked about that you resist the mental distractions, you get the cues from the people who are in front of you, and you pay attention to the details. I talked about, if you remember, I talked about reading between the lines. So you went to a nasty meeting. There are people are, maybe even shouting at you. There are bombardment of questions for you, and you look very cool and calm. You are just listening to what they are saying. You are processing the information. You are getting the cues from people, and then you started attacking the weakest one. So there may be one question that you know that you have the best answer to those that questions. So I mean, again, there are multiple ways to do that. But when you pay attention to the details, you get the cues from people why they are being, shouting at you, why they are nasty. So you process that information. You take your time before responding to that. That is where I believe mindfulness helps you, and getting things done, even those nasty meetings. And believe you me, I have practiced such. Even as in the start of the presentation, I showed one slide. For the last 5 days, almost every single day, we are having nasty meetings. And at the end of the meeting, we come out with meeting our own objectives. Whatever we need, we get it done from the client. So yes, I believe uh, uh, resisting the distraction again, getting the cues, reading between the lines, and paying attention would help you uh, to get your objective even the nasty meeting. Uh, can I have the next question, please?
All right, so that was a question by Wakar Hussain. Now the next one is from Zara Khan is how do you stay calm in the times of stress? For example, working on emergency response projects such as post-COVID-19 emergency response, where priorities keep changing and resources are limited?
Yeah, for me, a wonderful question and very relevant to nowadays situation that I am into currently. Uh, Slow is fast. That is the answer. You know, I know I get uh, emails, phone calls till probably 11:30 at night. Everyone is running after the data analytics situations. What I do is that I process the information, I plan it well, and then I respond whatever I think is the appropriate time on that. You know, uh, okay, it's been like 22 years working on projects and programs, and 22 years of working on the projects with the government on a national level projects worth billions of dollars. So with that experience, uh, I probably know that all the time in these emergency projects because I have an experience working on emergency projects. Everyone is shouting, everyone is having a different type of requirements. So again, I would say slow is fast. I take all the requirements, I plan it well. I have to say no. When I have to say no, I say no. The last 7 days, I have said no 3 times to the sitting minister and probably 4, 5 times to the secretary. There is a grade 22 officer in the Pakistan system. I said no, and I backed up the no with the data, with the evidences, and I got it what I wanted. So sustaining pressure, it comes with the time. If somebody is new to the stringent timelines, to the emergency projects, they will just burst. Even the people who are working in this project with me, they're like probably 50 people, and there were like 4, 5 people who were just uh, they are out of control, they're out of their mind because they couldn't take it. That they couldn't take the pressure. But that pressure comes in when you're experienced. You know that slow is fast. You know that whatever comes in, I have to plan well to minimize the redos because that is why my work is that I try to minimize that. Whatever I do something, I should not have to redo it. And this happen when you plan well. Please. There is there's another question from Wasim Khan that please explain further what is slow fast. Slow is fast means that you plan well before executing. If you plan, if you start executing quickly, you might be missing certain details. And if you are missing certain details, you might have to redo the whole thing. Maybe it's a software, you might have to redesign the software. Maybe it's another type of technology projects. You might have to configure the server. You might have to reconfigure the service or the web service if you're not planning well. So you take your time to plan, you get all the requirements, you plan it well, and then you execute. This is what I mean. Slow is fast. I think we don't have more questions, so let's move further. So again, this is the one interesting thing. They do one thing at a time. Uh, there's a very buzzword in town that is called multitasking. There's nothing like multitasking. Science says that even a very interesting information that a male mind especially cannot do multitasking. A female mind can do multitasking, but a male mind cannot do multitasking. So, do you really think that you can write a very important email while talking to your colleague and responding to a phone call? No, you cannot do that. You can just do one thing at a time. You can either respond to the phone call, or you can talk to a colleague sitting in front of you, or you write a very important email. What it means that you do one thing at a time. Not only one thing at a time, you also prioritize things. So as a project manager, you know that what is the top priority, what is the second, third, fourth, and what is the last priority. You start working on your top priority things, and you keep on ticking things that you're done. That is how you do one thing at a time. Okay, if again, one thing at a time is something that helps you in doing things in a much better fashion. When you prioritize things, you're working on top priority, you know this is something that need to be done, so you'll be more focused on in doing that stuff. The next habit of the happy people, they hear people out. It's not about the solo flights. It's about the people. It's about the stakeholders. It's about your team. It's about the project management team. It's about the client. So as a good project manager, as a happy project manager, uh, you actually need to hear what other people are saying. Why? Because it can help you. This data can help you in making better decisions, informed decisions. And there's other way of saying this, that when you hear people out, you give buy-in of those people. Let's say you are making a report. You gathered your whole project team. You are talking about, you were listening to their ideas. You included some of their ideas in that report. It means that you have the buy-in of the whole team. And now, if one have to defend that report, your whole team would be defending that report. Again, why? Because they are in that report. You heard them, you are hearing them out, you included what they were saying. Now you're getting benefit of making a family or making inclusion of those people. Very important stuff. The next habit of a happy project manager is, they live in present. You don't need to live in the past. That is called depression. When you live in the past, this is called depression. When you live in the present, this is called anxiety. In order to win, you need to be in the present. Very simple advice. If you really want to win in your project, you need to be present. What happened yesterday, day before yesterday, somebody sent a nasty email. The one guy who made a mistake, you missed out a milestone due to one another, subcontractor. Whatever happened, it happened. You need to live in the present. You need to detach yourself from the past. You need to stop thinking about the past and the future. There's interesting research that probably around 80 to 90% things you think, they don't happen actually. This anxiety thing, thinking about the future, this will happen, this will happen, this will happen. Probably 80 to 90% things, they actually don't happen. Okay, we have a question here. Can I hear the question out?
All right. So we have a question from Mr. Suleiman Merchant, and the question is: they know slow is fast. Can this
Mhm.
be clicked on situational based or every time? Sometimes situation demands you for fast processing during project planning.
Okay. Uh, for me, it's always slow and fast. Slow is fast. Why? Because whatever the situation is, you have to plan well. Yes, I do understand that there are situations, even the current situation I'm in, this program I'm working on, we don't have time at all, actually. People are dying not only due to the corona, but also due to the shortage of food. Uh, uh, People are dying actually. So we have very less time, but still in that time, slow and fast doesn't mean that you have to spend 1 month in planning. What it means is that you have to plan well. You spend more time in the planning, and then you spend less time in the execution, and it's the vice versa. You spend less time in the planning, you have to redo a lot of things, and you spend more time in the execution. So in my experience, one can definitely differ with this analogy and with this idea, but in my situation, in my experience, one always needs to plan well, whatever the situation is, just to avoid redos uh, from the execution. So yes, with the passage of time, you learn, you become smart. You learn to plan well in a short time, actually. So if you are a novice project manager, you might need, let's say, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 to plan a project. And maybe if you are like a guy with a 20 years of experience on the similar projects, you can do it in 2 or 3. So slow and fast doesn't mean with the passage of time. It means slow as fast means that you need to plan well, meticulous planning, so that when you are going for the execution, you are just doing it without any changes or redos, and you don't waste any time while redos, and you execute in the less time. There's another question I see, that live in the present, learn from the past, and plan accordingly for the future. Oh, okay. Yes, this is a comment. Wonderful. Yes, you're right. Uh,
Uh, one more question, that
yes.
how does project manager with already any sort of mental illness such as anxiety, depression, etc., can make sure that they can work well along with keeping themselves happy? It's from Hira Tulari, yeah.
Okay. This is a very good question. If this is something actually wonderful. If a project manager knows that he or she is in depression or anxiety, so it means you are done with the first step. Second step is that you need to accept it. You need to practice mindfulness. You need to be in the present. That would really help you. When you're in the present, that will really help you to detach yourself from the past and the future, and that will help you to be more effective and productive in the project. But again, this is a generic advice. If somebody knows that they have a severe problem, they need to consult the coaches or the consultants or the psychologists. Because if one thinks that he or she is like mildly depressed or anxious, that is okay, not something too bad. So you practice the mindfulness, you be in the present, you hear people out, you try to be healthy physically, and then that will make you healthy psychologically. But again, if the situation persists, then obviously you need to consult. Okay, uh, let's move forward. The next one is that they pool ideas. So again, as we talked about, that they hear people out. So they pool ideas. It is again not the solo flights. You need to talk to your team. You need to talk to the stakeholders, and you might get wonderful ideas to solve any conflict or any situation or fulfill any requirement. So again, it's not I or me, it's about we. So in a project, whoever the stakeholders are, you need to ask the stakeholders. And whenever you are getting any good ideas from the stakeholders, you need to actually uh, welcome those ideas and see if those ideas are sort of applicable or it can help you out. You may want to include those ideas into your project. And the happy project managers, they also respect others' opinion. Again, this thing came many times in the presentation, that accepting and respecting others' opinions, whether it's a diversity, whether it's a conflict situation, whether it's a heated discussion on the project, whether it's discussion about the requirements and the functionality, whether it's project discussion about the progress of the project, you need to uh, detach yourself from the emotions and respect the opinions of the other. There's a concept called SDI, Skill Development Inventory, where we say that in the stage one of the conflict, we talk about the conflict. And if we enter in the stage two, we forget the conflict and we talk about people. It means we make it personal. And then the conflict stays behind and people take it personal and talk about their personalities and their issues. That should not happen. And that would not happen if you respect the opinions of other. You are a mindful project manager. You are a resilient one. You see, you see between the lines. You get the mental cues from the people who are sitting in front of you. You smile at them, and then you process the same information uh, with your knowledge base. And then after processing and having an external view by detaching yourself from the situation, whenever you respond in that way, I believe that would always be a good response, a response that will help you to achieve your project objectives, that will help you to get things done, and that will really help you to be more happy. I truly believe in being happy. I truly believe in enabling people to be happy. And I believe that, especially as a project managers, you have a stressful job, you have a tough job, you need happiness more than anything. So if at the end of the presentation, if I can request you a couple of things, and one of them would be the mindfulness. You can practice it in any manner. You want to do meditation, you want to do uh, yoga, you want to listen music, you want to recite Quran, you want to uh, you know offer prayer, you want to give your time to yourself alone. Whatever you want to do, please do, but try try to practice this to be more mindful. So, because the communication is the hallmark of the project manager, more than 90% of the time, project manager has to communicate to the stakeholders. So, if you are a healthy person in terms of the physical health and the psychological health, you have planned well, you know the priority of the project, you hear people out, you live in the present, you respect the ideas of the other. There's no point that you won't be a happy project manager. So stay home, stay happy, and stay healthy. Thank you very much. That's all from my side. I'm open for any questions if you may have. Please.
All right, we have one question from Mr. Rashid Mahmood. What should be the best strategy of the project manager for handling stress during criticism time?
Sorry, during?
Criticism time.
So, can you please repeat question? Your
Okay, so
voice was.
let me repeat. Sure, let me repeat. What should be best strategy of the PM for handling stress during criticism time?
Okay, during criticism time, yeah, that is that is most of the time. This is the time for the project manager uh, that the project manager is being criticized on a lot of things. Uh, let me tell you what I do in such situations as a project manager when I'm being criticized on things that I have done and things I have not done and things that others have done. But again, it's just one neck, and that is the project manager. I stay cool and calm. I stay focused. Why? Because I practice mindfulness. I make my notes. I make my notes on the notebook. I take the mental cues. I do not respond quickly. I just keep on listening, and then as I told you earlier, I choose the weakest one. Maybe if you're meeting with 10 people, there are 7 people who are talking to you, shouting at you, criticizing you, and then you found out that there's one guy who was talking to you, but you know the answer of his or her question. So by divide and rule. So by one, after taking all the cues and having all the information, processing that information, that's what I do actually. You can answer the question. Sometime what I do is that I actually ignore certain things. There are sometimes there are stakeholders who are talking irrelevant, unnecessary. I just tend to ignore them. So ignoring people, uh, attacking back to the weakest one, getting the cues, writing it down, just being cool and calm. That most of the time help me to get things done and achieve my objectives in the presentation or in the project or in the meeting.
All right. So we have one more question. How to deal with the situations when maximum resistance come from the stakeholders?
How to deal with the situation where maximum resistance comes from the stakeholders. See, it depends actually what type of resistance we are talking about. Normally, in the start of the project, the influence of the stakeholder is high, and with the passage of time, it gets low. So if you're talking about the start of the project where you are designing the projects and requirements are being sorted out, yeah. So being a PM, uh, yeah, that's what I'm trying to answer. That in the start of the project, when the influence of the stakeholder is very high, and you are getting resistance. Maybe what happens sometimes, that there are conflicting requirements uh, from the stakeholders. So you need to sit with stakeholders. You need to see and analyze why the resistance is coming. Let's say if the resistance is coming at the time of the requirement collection, so you need to see why they are resisting. Again, end of the day, you need to convince the stakeholders that this project is for their benefit. you know we do have every project we do is for the change or the change management. So you need to actually convince the stakeholders that this change is for your betterment. So you need to see, you need to identify the resistance, you need to see why they are resisting, what are the root causes. So maybe you want to do the root cause analysis, and then you need to prioritize where the maximum resistance coming from. Maybe 80-20 rule. Somebody were in the comments were talking about 80-20 rules. So maybe you apply 80-20 rule in that. So there are different strategies depending on the scenarios, depending on which project phase you are in. You can apply those strategies to get rid of that resistance.
All right.
There's
So
a, there's a, there's a wonderful comment from Akbar Wali Shah. Happy managers are automatically efficient because they listen before speak. But unfortunately, that's not
okay,
the case with the 70%
happy
of us.
managers are
That's a
automatically efficient.
Yeah. So that's a wonderful comment. Thank you, Akbar, for this comment. Actually, listening is a very important trait for the leaders. We always say, not one time, listen, listen, listen. Most of the time, people even don't know how to listen. This may be, seem absurd for some people, but there are 2-3 days training for the people that how to listen effectively. And I absolutely agree with you that most of the time, and majority of us, they don't listen before they speak, or even if they listen to respond, not to understand. We all of us should listen to understand, not to respond.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so by far, I think the most topic come out in the discussion in the questions actually is slow is fast. Many people who have asked question that is it possible for you to provide some example of slow is fast further to understand?
Okay. Yes, sure. I can provide example. Uh, okay. Let me give you a project example. Slow is fast. As already told, it's something that you plan well before the execution. Uh, there's another way of saying this. Okay, let's say you're working on a project and the client gave you certain requirements, and client asks you, I'm in a hurry, we need to get things done. Let's say you're working on a software, and you didn't realize that you need to finalize the requirement and sign off the requirement, finalize the scope, and then you start working. You right away, you are very agile. You said, "Oh, not a problem, I can do it." So you listen half of the requirement, you give it to your development team. They started working on it, and one week down the road, you went to the client for the prototype, and the client said, "Come on, excuse me, this is not what I'm looking for. Actually, the requirement was not complete, and this is the complete requirement. I need this. There are four more features in this function in this portal or software or whatever. So what you will have to do is that you will have to probably redesign the project. You will have to redo it. You have to uh, recode it. That will take more time. The smart thing was that even then the client was in a hurry, you were supposed to finalize the requirement with the client. You were supposed to sign off the requirement with the client. You were supposed to have a clear communication and understanding what the client is looking for, and then supposed to start the execution. So when I say slow is fast, it means you should not start execution in a hurry. You are supposed to finalize the requirements. If we talk about the requirements in this example, so you need to finalize the requirement, you need to sign it off, you need to understand what the client is looking for. And when you have the clear understanding of the requirements, you finalize the scope, and then you go for the execution. In many projects, uh, in IT projects, software development projects, and other type of projects, people forget to uh, finalize the requirements, let's say. Or people, as Akbar said, most of us, we don't actually listen. So when you go to the client for the requirement analysis, you are not listening what client is saying, and you assume certain stuff, and you started working, started execution on that assumption, but that was not the right assumption. So what you will have to do is that you will have to redo the stuff. I'm telling again and again, whatever it take, avoid redoing the stuff. Whether it's a software, it's a construction project, it's a rocket, it's a ventilator, it's a mask, it's a hospital, anything you work on. If if in your project experience, in majority of your project, you have to redo things, it means you're not doing slow is fast. So that's I think that would clear something.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Naeem Iqbal. I think we are good with the question and answer session now. I've ended up with all the questions which I've received so far. Um, shared with our participants. In the end, again, I thank all of you on behalf of PMI Karachi Pakistan chapter to participate in our 172 monthly seminar and helped us and in continuing our legacy and the tradition of having engagement sessions with our membership. Hopefully, this month, right, we are celebrating our 14th year of chapter and our 14th anniversary. So we're gonna come up with more sessions, more virtual events, and more engagement opportunities for us and for the PMI colleagues and fellows. Thank you so much once again. We're going to send out the feedback form of this session and the presentation to all the participants by COB today. Thank you once again for your time. Thank you, Mr. Naeem Iqbal, for your time. And thanks once again for everyone for joining us.
Thank you, Ji. Thank you very much. Stay safe. Stay